Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar, Setting Your Strategy for 2019 with myself, Ian Fletcher. A very big welcome to the international program this year. Hopefully you'll find it very useful, and I will be here today to give you some time to think and to look at trends and forecasts in our industry worldwide, to look at the opportunities that are available to you as accountants to move your practice towards the advisory arena, and to look at your strategy and how you could actually write down, this is what our practice will look like when it's complete, and give you a list of recommended actions that you should take for 2019. The contents, I'm going to go and have a look at the overview of the world economy. We're then going to talk technology and the firm of the future, because technology is changing at such a rapid rate that we need to make sure we keep right up to date and are at the cutting edge of practice technology. We'll look at changing and the need for speed. It's very important this year that you make fast changes. I'll explain why later. And we'll finish off by looking at what a strategic plan would consist of. How do we actually put it into practice? Now, if you read the press like I do and you watch TV, then you probably think, gosh, there's a lot of disruption going on in the world right now. I mean, only today, this morning, I was reading on the BBC News site that GDP in China is down and things are going wrong, and Donald Trump's in the news all the time and there's disputes. Well, actually, when you look at the figures for the world economy, it's still positive. These slides are copyright of Seven Investment Management, who are investment managers based in London. And Justin Urquhart Stewart, who is their main speaker, used this slide at our annual conference. And what you can see is that since 2010, world GDP is still rising at around about 3.5%. So we have some disruption out there, but you can see that we have some growth. It's still positive. And the economic predictions that we've got and we've seen are that if you're in Europe, the Eurozone is still growing. It might be at a reduced rate right now with troubles in France and Germany. However, it is growing. And China is in a stage of transition. In 2012, services actually outfought manufacturing, if that's the right expression. And China is a service industry. Now, that might come as a surprise to many, as it did to I when I looked at this statistic a couple of years ago. But look at the gap, the red line for services between manufacturing. You can see the emergence of China as a big service player on the world economy. And for all that you might think about what's happening in the USA, they have had a major rebound of growth under Donald Trump since 2017. And you can see that in the graph. So when you look at the economic predictions, we can see that things are still growing. And if you look at the emerging markets, 52% of the world population in Central and South America, Russia and the Far East, China, India, East Asia, Africa, particularly Egypt and South Africa, that now accounts for 39% of GDP. And you can imagine those emerging markets are growing perhaps at a faster rate than some of the other areas of the world. So the outlook for 2019, as we see it at 2020, is growth, but there will be some volatility. World GDP continues to rise. As accountants, we should avoid complacency. We should plan for the future and remember the words of Abraham Lincoln, the best way to predict the future is to create it. What a fantastic phrase. And that's what we're going to do in today's webinar. Hopefully I will give you the time to think about creating your future as a firm of accountants, auditors, or tax specialists. Interestingly, I was looking at Business Quarter, which is a UK publication, and the website address is on the slide, about what they predicted for our clients, for our SME clients. The majority of our clients are SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. And what were the predictions? What were they suggesting for SMEs in 2019? It's quite interesting. They believe that there will be more tech collaboration between large corporates and SMEs, simply because the emergence, as you will well be aware, of technology is driven by small companies. And in an effort to remain relevant, larger companies will be looking to work more collaboratively with SME tech companies. And we can see this happening here in the UK, where larger companies, it's a bit like a cruise liner or a cargo ship. You know, to change direction takes miles. Whereas an SME, if there's just one person in the business, they can have a board meeting in the shower on the way to work. They can be very fast to change. So what we'll see is more collaboration. I agree with that. I see that happening more and more. Interestingly, the next area of predictions that Business Quarter made was about bad data and improved customer communications. And I think this is so relevant to accountants because, you know, our top performing firms here at 2020, our most profitable firms, have specific regard for the accuracy of data so that they don't annoy existing customers and that they target the prospects that they want, the type of clients that they want in their business. So if you look at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology review, bad data is harmful to companies, potentially costing them as much as 25% of revenue. So one of the things that we should think about is actually making sure that all data in our database of existing clients, prospects, suppliers is as accurate as possible. And our top performing firms make sure they cleanse their data thoroughly and regularly to make sure that they are hitting the right people at the right time. So one of the actions I would recommend is have a look at your data post GDPR if you're in Europe, or if you're anywhere else in the world. Look at your data and look how you can make it as accurate and as efficient as possible to save you messing around. And most of the messing around, to use a technical expression, is through repetitive actions. We keep having to send stuff, email stuff again. We get bounced emails. Somebody has to look at this. Let's get our data as accurate as possible, and you will see your profit improve as a result. And the growth of digital platforms, and we can start with digital marketing databases. There's plenty of them around, such as Salesforce, Maximizer. We use Infusionsoft here at 2020, has allowed you to actually outsource the management of data. And we, in fact, use people in the Philippines through our friends at Frontline to actually cleanse our data for us. So the growth of digital platforms has helped, again, the way we diversify. And as a business, as a firm of accountants, we should be looking more and more towards social media. We should be looking at pull marketing as opposed to push marketing by email or letter. It's about potential customer engagement, and more social media is going to be the norm. So again, have somebody or have some resource to cleanse your data. Have somebody thinking about how you can pull customers towards your website, potential customers towards your website. And we'll look a little bit later at what that will mean, because it will mean that if we've got our website right, and I'll give you a few tasters of what we should be looking for, we can start engaging with customers. Customers and potential customers can start looking at our resources and almost self-serving on certain of our services. And that trend will increase throughout 2019 and will become the norm in the next few years. Obviously, with firms and the role of the world and the pollution that we're seeing, it's obviously growing awareness that we're damaging our planet by unsustainable practices means that people, prospects, existing customers respect their professional advisor if we're taking some kind of control over how we impact the planet. So we have a leading role to play, for example, in how we manage our impact on the planet. And I think that's important as well. That's important to say that you do those things, and to say and let people know that you are conscientious and you are careful and thinking about the planet. With millennials coming into the workforce, and they're making younger people are making a greater percentage of the workforce, businesses do have to adapt and change, and most accountants have got this. You know, younger people are motivated by money, but that's not the only issue. They want flexibility, they want great IT, they want good training, they want career prospects. And flexibility and flexible working and a chance to make a difference. I mean, the British bank HSBC gives everybody, every employee, 2 days paid leave to do volunteering work every year. And that pattern and that trend will continue. Flexible working, giving employees flexible hours, giving them days off to work from home, letting them work from home full time is the norm in some businesses, especially mine, as I'm broadcasting this webinar from my home today. Free drinks on a Friday afternoon, that was always a perk when I worked at one of the big 4 audit firms. We used to finish and hand our timesheets in every other week, and the partners would put on some free drinks. I'm sure that's just to get our timesheets in the old days, back in the day. But other perks alongside salaries and job titles are more important. Now, if you're an accountant listening to this with millennials coming into your workforce, think about the technology, think about the flexibility, think about time for volunteering, think about changes. If you're like me in your 50s, we were quite rigid. We had timesheets, we clocked in, we did all that routine. Well, things are different, and things are going to become even more flexible. You know, a lot of our top performing accountants have some employees in different countries. Some of them outsource their work to third parties. Some of them have offshoring departments in other countries, just as 2020 does. It's becoming more flexible than ever. And our industry is changing because of technology. I think I have never seen such fast changes in my entire career of nearly 35 years as an accountant. Technology is having a massive impact to us, simply because it's speeding up the process of how we finish a set of accounts and file those accounts, how we finish a set of tax return and file that tax return. And cloud accounting has altered the way we deal with clients. And I'll show you the most important slide we've ever produced at 2020 in due course when we look at production, because technology means that we can do it faster and quicker than we've ever done it before. However, it does mean that we'll need to educate our clients on our systems and how we expect them to present their data. Because at the moment, many of you listening to this, and you are wonderful people, you're supermen and superwomen, you just allow your clients to keep their books and records in any which way they choose. And actually, you think about it, some of them will keep them paper records, some on spreadsheets, some on desktop software, and there's so many different varieties of that, and some will be on the cloud. What we need to have is a more streamlined production process if we are going to compete in the market for production of accounts and tax returns in the future, simply because there's more competition. I mean, you think about it, accountancy and tax advisory is a very profitable industry. None of us have missed a meal recently, I hope. We all meet our mortgage payments and we earn a comfortable living. Therefore, people outside of our profession, and many of you have trained in a traditional way and a traditional professional way, will come into our market and are coming into our market. In fact, in the UK, just to give you a statistic, 1/3 of all registered companies for bookkeeping, 1/3 of the industry is now non-traditional accountants. They are not your traditional chartered or certified accountants or CPA accountants. They are coming into our industry using cloud technology and competing against us on price, simply because they use that technology to produce those accounts and tax returns quicker and faster. So we need to change with technology. We need to understand that data analytics will be the norm, that when we do an audit, we should be putting the client's data through an analytic process that looks for unusual movements, fluctuations, strange entries, and produces a report at the start of the audit that allows us to direct our audit risk process. In the UK, for example, there are software providers that do that. In the US, you have Profit Sense by SageWorks, which will allow you again to do analytical review on a client to look for those errors, those mistakes, those unforeseen processes. Check My Books inflow. Have a look on the internet, Google data analytics, and have a look at what's happening out there and decide and choose whether or not you should be using this to help you speed up, for example, your audit process, or indeed, if you've got a client who is using a piece of software to produce their accounts, use something like Check My Books, which is a lower end but comprehensive way of looking for those errors and fluctuations. What can we use data analytics for to speed up the time that we take? Now, I mentioned audit because audit is probably the least profitable compliance service amongst the firms that I consult with. It is the one that has the most resource in terms of staff for the least profit, and therefore, because it's becoming more regulated, because if you're doing larger audits, there's more disclosure of information required. There's more risk. Regulators are getting tougher with your clients and ourselves. You have to look at ways of saying, what's the risk? How do we identify that risk? And how do we make this process much more efficient than it is right now? So data analysts is going to become the norm, even for accounting clients. And if you've got clients on a cloud accounting package, then it becomes very simple to run an analytics program through their data using something like Check My Books to actually look for those errors, those one-sided transactions, those cut-off issues, all of the stuff that helps you produce the accounts much quicker than perhaps you did before. What does it really mean, this technology? Well, if you want to streamline your accounts production and compete for compliance services in the future, then it almost certainly means you need to get your clients on a cloud accounting package. Whether they're manual, spreadsheet, or an old-fashioned desktop, you should be really pushing to process their accounts, get them trained onto a cloud accounting package. It is going to be so much more profitable in the future because you can look into the client's books and records 24/7, 365. You can correct errors. You can give advice much easier if you have access to those books and records in real time. It means that you can correct those errors before you produce the accounts. And most of you, when you look at accounts production, know that the most profit for accounts production is lost at the end of the job, at the fag end of the job, as we call it in the UK, where you're playing ping pong with the file, electronic or manual, passing it between the doer and the reviewer, and back to the client for queries, back to the doer, then to the reviewer, and back to client for queries. And ping pong is the easiest way to lose money on any accountancy job. But if we've got the client on a cloud accounting package, we are in that position to say to adjust those books and records, put the prepayments, accruals in the depreciation, make the tax adjustments in that cloud accounting package. And more importantly, if you've got the clients on a cloud accounting package, you're in a position to do what if scenarios, just suppose scenarios, to look at the figures and give the almost be able to give the client the solution to a question before they make that decision to go ahead with the decision. And cloud accounting will allow you. We'll see in due course. Here's the most important slide I'm going to show you today. We first showed this slide in November 2018 at the 2020 annual conference at Westminster, London. This slide is the most important slide for production I think we've ever seen. If we think about it, if you look at the red box or purple box in the middle, that's our client's accounting package. It could be manual, it could be spreadsheet, it could be desktop, it could be cloud. And you think of the inputs that go in there. We've got purchase invoices, sales invoices, expenses, and we've got payroll. Now we're just ignoring payroll for the moment. And we take that bookkeeping package, whatever it might be, and we CSV export it into our accounts production, or if we're lucky, it will link into our accounts production and tax production software, which is the dark green boxes. Wouldn't it be much simpler if we could train our clients to photograph on their phone their expenses or their purchase invoices, use OCR technology such as Expensify, Receipt Bank, there are many on the market, to actually input that data to the right debit in the profit and loss account using a cloud accounting package? Wouldn't it be simpler if we had bank feeds that allocated the expense and the payment and the receipt and the invoice, the sales invoice, so that we could use that data analytics, that clever technology to actually match the bank and reconcile the bank much easier and much more quickly than we would do if we did it at the year end? Wouldn't it be very, very useful if we could get the clients to use a cloud accounting package to produce their sales invoices? And that's it. Once we've got the client producing their sales invoices, what we've got the client using a piece of software to OCR their expenses and purchase invoices in, once we've got the bank feeds, we are seeing those results 24/7, 365. And here's the really smart thing about technology. If we are using a bookkeeping package, such as Sage, Capium, and Xero Instafiler, they all three have it or are going to have it. We imagine QuickBooks will follow very shortly. We should be able to push that data to our accounts production or tax software, which is part of the bookkeeping software. So we can cut out a separate piece of software, the dark green boxes that you see on screen, to flow through to filing of accounts with whichever company's house you use, filing of tax returns to your local tax authority. We can go straight through the middle without the need for the dark green boxes. That piece of software in the middle of that diagram, that red or purple box, is going to be your only need for software outside of payroll and perhaps even business advisory. If you think about it, if you've got your clients on a cloud accounting package, because you can look at those figures 24/7, 365, you can actually offer forward thinking business advice. You can become much more proactive. You can do the just suppose. What if we improved our sales, we increased our sales price? What if we sold more? What if we cut our costs? What if we did this, this, and this? What if we bought this machine? All of that can happen very quickly, because you've got to remember, clients don't really appreciate what we do with compliance work. It's a necessary evil for many clients. They begrudge having to do this process of filing accounts and tax returns. They never thank you for it. I mean, has anybody ever been thanked for a set of accounts? That was the best set of accounts I've ever seen. Put me down for 2 next year. It just doesn't happen. So what we've got to think is about how we can use one piece of software, how we can train our clients to input certain bits, how we can use one piece of software to process our accounts and tax returns, and how we can use that piece of software to offer great business advice. And that is the cloud. That is the future for you as compliance specialists. And when you look at the accounting sector, what your job, your strategy should be is to say, okay, the blue is what we do really well. That's the engine room of our practice. We need to be as efficient as possible in the production of accounts and tax returns and payroll when we do that. What about the red? How do we expand our practice? How do we expand our practice into forward-thinking services, proactive business advice? How do we get our clients to come to us for advice about their future as well as their present and their past? And that is the big question. Now, the firms that get this and have got this in their strategy are expanding the number of services that they offer on the right-hand side of that pie chart. So, for example, easy wins would be finance and wealth management. Easy wins, because we can offer self-service finance, almost self-service wealth management. We can offer self-service insurance. And what we're really good at is forecasting, projections, business planning, helping raise finance, doing what-if scenarios, the profit improvement sector. We love doing that. That's what we were born to do. That's what we as accountants enjoy doing, advising the client, helping the client with growing or improving the profit of their business. That's what we should be looking at. So how do we move our practice from being a compliance practice to being a more advisory role? And if you're in advisory, how do we get more advisory services for our clients? How do we become the most trusted business advisor? How do we make sure that that client relies on us totally for all of their personal and business needs, rather than going to someone else, rather than having a competitor come along and say, we talk about the future as opposed to the past? How do we set our strategy to make us an advisory firm as well as an efficient compliance practice? That is the question we need to ask for 2019, especially with the technology that is coming our way. Here's an example of a very simple advisory product from Australia. It's called the Cash Flow Story. It's $1,000 per user per annum. It allows you to plug in a set of clients' results and do what if or just suppose. If you're a platinum member, we can get you a 50% discount on this particular product, so it becomes $500 a year. And they call it the power of one. So it takes about 10 minutes to actually plug a client's results into this. What's interesting about this is because it's called the power of one, you can produce a very quick report which you can put with the accounts that says, just suppose you increased your price by 1%. What would be the impact on your cash flow and your earnings? What if you had revenue growth of 1%? What if you had cost of goods sold reduction? What if you had an overheads reduction? It can just produce a really simple graph that says if you did 1% changes in these areas, you could improve your profits by, in this case, $94,000 and improve your cash flow by $64,000. And what you do is you attach this to the accounts and say, dear client, here's your accounts. We don't understand them. You won't either. No, I'm joking. Here's your accounts. Also, I've attached a simple report that shows you what a 1% increase or decrease in these factors would mean to your business. If you'd like to come in and discuss how we can help you with your growth and your profit, please call me. So you use it as a hook product to get the client interested, excited, fascinated about what you can do. And then you can go through and produce a more comprehensive report with the client, talk about their aims, their future, their ambitions. What do they want to get out of the business? Because that's the big question that we just don't ask with clients. We get so busy with accounts and tax production that sometimes we just don't step back and say, what are you trying to do with this business? What is the end result of your business? What is the best thing? What would your business look like when it was complete? That is the big question we need to ask clients. What are you trying to achieve with this business? What's the purpose of the business? Now, you put it nicely and you phrase it more eloquently than I've just said. But if you can ask the client what they're trying to achieve, what's the end result, you are in a prime position to talk to them about their future. You will be a business advisor immediately if you start asking that question. And I think it's a question that most accountants, when they're face to face with their client, should say, just remind me, Sid, we've been doing your accounts for 10 years. What are you trying to do with this? And it might be all sorts of things. It might be just put money away in my pension, or just actually survive, or I want to grow to be the largest regional customer company that does this. I want to be national. I want to be international. I want to take over the world. It's a bit like asking a young runner that you might come across if you're at an athletics club. And I used to do a lot of running. So the question you'd say is, where do you want to go? What are you trying to achieve? Because if you want to be a coach, if you want to be an advisor, you need to know the end result. And that young person might say, I want to be an Olympic athlete. I want to be a county athlete. I want to be a national athlete. I want to be, I just want to get fit. And then you can change and adapt and advise appropriately once you know the end result. And the Power of One helps you do that because it starts the conversation. What are you trying to achieve with this business? And just suppose you had a reduction of debtors day stock. This has a major impact on what the client and how the client relates to the accountant. Those firms that have this very simple piece of software in place, mainly in Australia, but now in the UK and some in the US, has made a huge difference to what they are giving as advice to those clients. And just think about prospects. Just think about prospects. If you were emailing or having on social media, just suppose what a 1% change in these factors would make in your business, and they could see an example report. They're more likely to talk to you about their future than someone else, and that means you can pick the compliance work up on the back of it. Very important to ask that key question. Now, if you've got a website, which most of you have, then I guess the next step is, how do we talk about other things like finance for new machinery, for growth, for new people, for new campaigns? How do we help them with their business advice? How do we attract them to talk to us? Well, on the left-hand side of the screen is a DIY, do it yourself, as we say in the UK, or self-service funding requirements. You put some text on your website. It's on the 2020 website, www.the2020group.com. Have a look. You'll see this similar type of information on there under finance. But you have an educational piece on your website which says finance, and it goes through the different types of finance that are available, and it has a self-serve question. What are your funding requirements? Give us your details and we'll call you up and we'll talk about it. You're generating leads from your website by simply having education on it and a funding requirement form. On the right-hand side of the screen are some business planning tools. These are used by many 2020 members in the UK. They have a section called Business Advice on their website, usually a tab at the top of the website, because these need to be tabs so that clients can immediately see that you're different. You're positioned in the advisory sector as opposed to just accounts, audit, tax, payroll. And they can see under advisory that there are some tools. So break-even analysis, cash flow forecasting, a one-page business analyst. What if I did this, this, and this? What about my retirement? Will I have a comfortable retirement? Probably the number one question that people, what is my company worth? Probably the number two question that business owners think about. And they can go on and they can play around with these tools. Invariably, they'll have a 5-10 minute, the attention span of people using these tools is very brief. But if you've got a form, contact me about if you want some help, please just leave me your details. You can ring up and say, I noticed that you are looking at your company valuation. Do you want me to come down and do one with you? I noticed that you were looking at the retirement planner. Would you like me to have one of my friends from our wealth management company, or our friends down the street, come and talk to you about your retirement? You're starting to generate advisory leads, which leads to advisory fees. So have a think about how you generate. What hook products have you got to help your clients make a choice? We're also seeing in our industry worldwide a lot of niche service providers emerging. Some firms have said, you know what, I'm just going to specialize in maybe business advisory, strategy, what if, forecasting. I'm going to niche myself in tax planning. I'm going to become my key clients' virtual financial director. I'll move them onto a cloud package, and I'll be able to produce management reports as required by the client to help them make decisions. Or I'm just going to do bookkeeping. You know, in the UK, that is 1/3 of the market that we're seeing emerging. But as people become bookkeepers and they use cloud technology, they will become accounts filers and tax return filers in the future. Or I'm just going to do compliance. I'm going to pile it high and sell it cheap. I'm going to do accounts, audit, tax, payroll, or I'm going to do accounts and tax. And I am just going to make sure that I use technology to the maximum effect. That's what I'm going to produce. I'm going to sit in that sector of the market. Other people have become audit only. Certainly the trend in the UK is that audit is becoming so highly regulated in terms of the time you need to take for CPD, for training, for talking, for the forms that you have to fill in, for the work that you have to do to make sure that you're regulatory safe, has become so unprofitable that several firms have given up their audit license, and other firms have said, pass your audits to us. We will not compete for the client on the accounts and tax return or any business advice. We will do the audit work for you. And that has happened more and more in the UK. Certainly, some firms specialize now by industry. And the most profitable niches that you can be in are by industry or by service. And if, for example, you're a tax planning specialist in a certain industry, that is the most profitable sector you can be in. So think about your niche. Some firms have said, you know what, the way the market's going is I'm going to put my bookkeeping into a separate department. I'm going to put my compliance into the department with the bookkeeping or separate from the bookkeeping. And I'm going to focus on business advisory for the remainder. So I'm going to rebrand. I'm going to segment my business. And some firms have done that. Some firms, for example, would be UK bookkeepers, UK payroll by region. So they're starting to rebrand, start new businesses, understanding the trends in the market, that compliance is going to become price sensitive and very easy to do with technology, and advisory is the niche area that we as accountants can move into. Because let's face it, we are the best business advisors there are. Nobody has got the skills that we have. When we trained traditionally, and I did this, went from business to business, whether it be audit or doing accounts or helping the clients with tax. I went from business to business. I saw some really bad businesses. I saw a lot of average businesses, and I saw some amazingly profitable businesses. And after a few years of doing that role, I learned what the most profitable businesses did differently from the others. And therefore, just like you, with that experience, we can pass that good business advice to others, to our average clients who are looking to improve their profit, their growth, expand their business, whatever it might be, or keep safe, or keep it safe from outside influences. We learnt that as accountants. We learnt that in our training. We learnt that as we qualified. We are the best business advisors out there. If you have 5 years experience doing accounts and visiting firms and talking to business owners, you are the best business advisor that can be. You can pass on what your profitable clients have done differently to your average and perhaps less well-performing businesses. So the changes we're seeing in the market are that compliance services are going to be price sensitive. We need to streamline our production and adopt cloud. That is the #1 priority for you if you're listening to this webinar in 2019. Your strategy should be to be as efficient as possible and use the technology that's available. Use that cloud package. The trouble with being in business these days, and I've been in business a long time, is that there's more regulatory burden from governments. It's just whatever government says to me over my life, it's always been more information, more regulation, more complications to actually running a business. And business owners need clear vision. They need strategy. And that's where we come in. We can cut through all of the regulatory red tape. We're good at that stuff. We're accountants. And we can say, this is what you should do. This is how you should set your vision. This is your strategy. We'll deal with all that stuff. You focus on this. We're going to see the rise more and more of those advisory services, tax planning, profit improvement, finance, corporate finance, strategic planning. Those are the key areas that we should be focusing our business on. And whatever we think about 2019, I can promise you, you need to change your production methodology for accounts and tax. I've seen firms that are now nearly 100% cloud. They are so much faster in the production of accounts and tax than a traditional firm. We need to think about value-driven and benefit-driven services. So what we're seeing with a lot of firms is that they will offer a monthly subscription for the range of services, almost the gold, silver, bronze. Or this is our package, this is what we do, and to help your cash flow, you pay us monthly. Subscription-based business is much more profitable than a traditional accounting practice. A traditional accounting practice, just to give you an example, is valued on a percentage of gross recurring fees. Typically, it's 1.25 right now in the UK, and that's how it's valued. 1.25. We've seen up to 1.6 just now. Fees. A subscription-based business is valued at a multiple of profits. Now you think about this, a multiple of profits, not a percentage of GRF. So if you are a profitable business, you could build value and sell at, say, 7 times profit. It might be 5 times profit, it might be 11 times profit, it might be 20 times profit, but just suppose that you were a subscription-based businesses. People who are acquiring firm of accountants like a regular income subscription coming in, rather than the once a year billing with a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of recurring, some non-recurring. People buying accountancy practices want more certainty, and that's a monthly subscription. So one of the trends, one of the things you should be thinking about in your strategy is, if you have compliance-based clients, how do I get them to pay monthly on a subscription base? The structure of what we should be aiming for in our strategic plan, as we start to think about writing down our plan, what are we going to do with compliance, streamline it? How are we going to move into the advisory services? How are we going to offer subscription-based business services based on bundles? So, for example, the basic bundle will be preparing your year-end accounts and tax return, doing your payroll. It might be this a month. A more comprehensive model will be making sure that we give you a monthly report, management report from your package. Very simple if you're on the cloud. Helping you with a tax planning exercise pre-year end in our office, over the web, using Skype, or actually visiting the client. Might be being available to you for projection and cash flow forecasts. You build a subscription. And self-serve resources will be the norm. You want your website and the resources on it to be the best available it can. You want it to cover a range of advisory services with education, with tools, with helpful videos, webinars on how to do things. What's important about this? So that clients can start to use your website, your resources. And of course, the more they look at your website, the more resources they use, the more they come to you for information and education, the more they're going to be locked in and loyal to you as opposed to somebody else. And we're seeing firms become more specialist and less generalist. Certain departments would deal with certain things, as opposed to a partner being a general practitioner. We're seeing partners, managers, and employees splitting off. In terms of people, the traditional route of accountancy, in our view, is changing significantly. In the old days, you went to university, you got a degree, you went and did a conversion course, you became a trainee, you stayed for 3 to 4 to 5 years while you took your traditional exams, you started at the bottom and you worked up. That's all changed. People haven't got time. Young people, millennials, haven't got time for all of that stuff. A lot of them don't want to go down the traditional route. In fact, what we're finding is that accountants, our most profitable accountants, are employing people pre-university, so 18. They haven't gone to university. They're saying, right, we'll take you on and we'll train you in cloud software, a range of cloud software packages. We'll train you how to get on with business owners, and you will become handholders, trainers of clients, how to help the clients produce their sales invoices and expenses and purchase invoices in a cloud accounting package, how to use their mobile. We'll train you on all of that so that your job is to make sure that the data clients put into a cloud accounting package is accurate as possible. And after we've got you trained on that, and after you've done that role for a while, we'll then train you further to an accounting qualification if you so wish. We'll train you to then look for errors, unusual movements, fluctuations, to actually work with the client, looking at their cloud accounting package to produce accounts and tax returns quickly. And if you're in a digital tax environment, quarterly returns. So we will then take you on after the 12 months, 24 months that you've been a trainer, you've learned how to use these packages, you've learned how to help clients, you've become an expert in them. We will then train you to do the more important area of accounts finalization and tax returns. So we're seeing that happen. We're seeing firms saying this isn't the traditional route of bringing people on, is not working. People, and a lot of people I talk to in traditional firms are fed up of spending 3 years training somebody up to get qualified for them to move on to a higher paid role, or to just say, I don't want to do this, I want to do something else. So actually starting younger means that you can influence and help them with their decision, and they can make that decision without too much of an investment cost to the firm of accountants. And if you've got someone who's done the training and has the client skills, then they become great accountants. You can train them in the technical stuff at the year end for tax and accounts. They become much better accountants because they've had that experience of visiting lots of different clients. We're also seeing specialist client care and advisors coming on board. So you bring outside people in to help with specific areas. The DIY model that I showed you earlier, the self-serve model, is fantastic, but somebody's actually got to pick up the phone. Somebody's got to do the profit improvement, the cash flow forecasting, the business valuation, the tax planning. Somebody has to be an advisor to do that. Now, if you're looking at this and you're from not from the UK, you're probably wondering, what on earth am I doing showing fish and chips in a newspaper? Well, I can tell you that we have an expression in the UK that says yesterday's news is today's fish and chip paper. And I tell you what, some practices are going to be yesterday's news. Some practices will not make the change. Some practices will be selling out for less than 1.1 times gross recurring fees. They're gone, their history. They won't survive in their form in any way, shape or form, because technology means that the market is changing rapidly. So here's the deal. What you need to do is go through your practice thoroughly, use the 2020 partner questionnaire, and go through and say, we're good at this, we're not so good at that. This is an issue, and then rate the issue on a scale of 1 to 5. This is the sort of checklist I would use when I go in to see a firm. I go through management. So if we look at management, we don't have a strategic plan, we don't do an annual budget, we have trouble making decisions, we don't get monthly figures on a regular basis, there are no clear lines of authority, the managing partner does not have the respect of the other partners, we don't have regular management meetings, we don't get the whole firm together enough. Now, if you go through those, you'll probably say, oh, that's not me, that's not me. Well, actually, just go through the whole process of management, financial, clients, including retention, complaints, are we on the cloud, partner issues, including signed agreements, profit shares, succession, including funding for succession, capital accounts, retirement, staff issues, including hiring and retaining systems, IT, marketing, including social media and website. Go through a thorough review of your practice in those areas and work out what you need to work on. And that's a good starting point for writing a strategy. That's a good point for saying we're good at this, we're not so good at that. Because what you need to do right now is flip the way you deal with your clients, flip the technology that you use. You have to accept that new technology is going to change everything we do. There's going to be more competition worldwide. We need to throw out what we used to do and write a strategy for change immediately. What will your firm look like in 2 years' time? What clients do you want? What services will you offer? What people will you hire? What technology will you use? And how will you manage this business to make sure that it's as profitable as possible? How will you be different from every other firm of accountant? Because we have many famous accountants that are 2020 members. One of them is a guy called Jeremy Harbinson in Northern Ireland. He said, you can't be better technically than anyone else, but you can be different. So how are you going to differentiate your firm in the market? How are you going to position your firm in the high price added value sector of our industry? Because right now, with cloud, with technology, your practice has been driven into the bottom left side of that pen if it is compliance only, of less value added service and lower price. Now that's fine if you can pile them high and sell them cheap. If you can actually compete in that market for compliance services using technology such as the cloud to drive production so it's so efficient, that is a good sector to be in. The best sector to be in is where you're offering advice, advisory services that talk about a client's or a person's future as opposed to their present or their past. And that is the higher price, more value added. Now, if you're a traditional firm of accountants with lots of business experience skills, as I'm sure you are, that is where you should be aiming. That is your strategy to be in that sector. It might be that you departmentalize or rebrand your compliance services, but you want to be in the area where clients will want to pay you to talk about their future. So when you look at a strategic plan, when you're thinking about it, I would suggest 2 years. I mean, traditional strategic planning has always been 5 years, but actually I think 2 years is the right thing to look at. So what will your practice look like when it's complete, when you've made the technology changes, when you've moved towards more advisory services, when you're in the higher price, high value sector of the market? What will your market position be? What services will you offer? What technology, what production methodology, what staffing turnover and profit figures will you have in 2 years' time? That's what a strategic plan looks like. The template on the right-hand side is our consultant's guide to helping a firm of accountants do it. So if you look at that, what's distinctive about this firm? How can we serve our clients and prospects? How can we be so attractive? How can we be so involved in their businesses, their day-to-day lives, that they won't go anywhere else? So look at that right-hand side and think about where your business will be in 2 years. Share that strategy with your team. If you're a 2020 member, you have a written strategic plan available for you to document your services, your strategy, your unique selling points, as you can see on the right-hand side. You might want to edit some of that out, but you share it with the team. And then you can set actions and timetables to make this happen and monitor progress. So here's the big question that most accountants miss. Just as the big question for clients is, what are you trying to do with this business? The big question for accountants is, if we've set a strategy, if we've thought about where we're going in 2 years, then what have we done this month towards moving our practice towards that strategic plan? That is the big question. It's not about the detail. It's about, have we moved our practice to where we want to be? That is the only question you should be asking yourselves in 2019. Set your targets, set your action plan, and then your management of that is, have we moved our practice? What actions have we taken this month with technology, production, staffing, services to move towards that end result, that big picture of when our business will be complete? If I summarize today's webinar, strategy is about having a look in the future. It's about thinking, what's going to be happening? Where do I see our firm fit into the marketplace? What technology do we need to have to make this happen? What people do we need? What type of clients do we want? And in summary, if you've got the big picture, then work as fast as you can to streamline your compliance. Look at the technology opportunities that you've got out there. How can we move our clients to the cloud? How can we create opportunities for advisory services? How can we attract prospects and existing clients to look at our website, to educate themselves on finance, wealth management, whatever it might be, so that they talk to us? How can we talk to them about the big question? What are you trying to do with this business? What's important to you? Now, we've got to make these changes over the next 2 years, in my view, because technology will sweep us by if we don't. If you just sit back and let all of this happen and say, oh, I'm not worried about this. Oh, well, we'll just see. Oh, I'm profitable right now. You're like a piece of flotsam in the ocean. You just bounced around by wave after wave, and eventually you get washed up on the shore, somewhere that you didn't expect to get washed up. You throw a bottle in the sea, like many people have done as childs. Throw a bottle in the sea with a message in a bottle, throw it in, you don't know where it's going to go. Let a balloon go in the air. It will just go anywhere where the winds take it. You need to be in that position where you create your own future. You are not dependent on outside parties. So sit down, take some time away from whatever you're doing right now. Write a strategy, discuss it with your fellow partners, senior employees. What do you want to be as a practice in 2 years' time? Once you've done that, then get everybody on board, share the vision, share the strategic plan. This is what we'd like to be as a firm, and get everybody involved, get everybody buying into this. Because if they don't buy in, they'll throw grenades at you. You've got to get everybody in the firm on board with the big picture. And remember that positioning your firm in the market is absolutely vital for success. I hope we've given you something to think about. I hope we've given you something different to think about in today's webinar. Go ahead, think about your strategy, write your plan, share it. My very best wishes for 2019. Thank you.